Mars has been our neighbor before humans were around, but we still know so little about this astral body. Could we one day colonize the world, or is there already life on it? An important sample needs to return, but where is it coming from? Where will it land? And how are we getting it here? Watch till the end to know how does NASA plan to keep samples from Mars safe from contaminating Earth. First, how are they going to get there? Unlike the Guardians of the Galaxy, NASA doesn't have a Benatar on hand to zoom out there and back real quick. NASA and their partner organization ESA, the European Space Agency, are working together to figure out how they'll send a mission that can reach Mars, turn around, then make it to Earth. How are they going to do that? It's still being worked out, but with big successes like the recent DART mission that changed the trajectory of an asteroid, and the public's renewed interest in space as a whole, means there's more attention and potential funding available to figure it out. China has utilized an orbiter and rover combination with Tianwen-1 and Zhurong, dropping a ground capsule that could break the atmosphere, linked with an orbital, and send a space-to-ground unit that doesn't need to both survive exiting the atmosphere and the voyage across space, could get around a lot of current issues surrounding our unmanned rocket ships. We can speculate until the cows come home, but an unmanned mission burning up in space isn't what the teams at NASA and the ESA are most worried about, but we'll get to that later. There is hope though, the multi-mission Earth entry vehicle. Next, how is the ESA helping NASA's Mars mission? In addition to working on the MSR capsule, the ESA has agreed to share launch capacity, information gathering, and data uplink to their orbital satellites over Mars. That essentially means that America and Europe have one joint internet over Mars. The ESA had their own lander they were intending to crawl Mars with, but sadly, the Beagle 2 did not survive its landing attempt. But as we all know, all good dogs go to heaven. Its orbiter continues a highly successful monitoring of Mars and its two moons, Deimos and Phobos. NASA and the ESA have spent much of 2018 and 2019 pooling their resources and planning how they'll make a return orbiter that can facilitate the Martian side of slinging a capsule across space in a grand game of interplanetary badminton. Why work together? The science community has long been interested in cooperation in the name of expanding knowledge. Thanks to good relations between the United States and the EU, the alliance was forged and able to make good progress. Sadly, for projects like the International Space Station, based on cooperation between the US and Russia, space agreements don't tend to outlast major tensions between the participating nations. While the scientists and astronauts are eager to work together, the countries don't always agree. Let's hope Europe and America stay friends long enough to bring these samples home. Now we ask, what's the multi-mission Earth entry vehicle? Developed by NASA's Langley Research Center over the course of 2 decades, this brand new technology is designed to enable retrieval of Martian samples to Earth. The MMEEV incorporates energy-absorbing crushable structures intended to land on surfaces ranging from soft soil to solid concrete, and its 60-degree sphere cone forebody and back shell geometry are tailor-made to aim itself back where it's going if it gets knocked off course. On the inside, the MMEV is like a pancake with 10 layers. The aft body thermal protection system, aft body structure, lid structure, shell foam, spherical payload, body foam, primary structure, aluminum honeycomb, forebody structure, and wait for it folks, end of the countdown here at number 10, forebody thermal protection system. All this is built around keeping the internal sample case, the spherical payload section, safe during landings. The aluminum honeycomb helps diffuse the damage from impact, and overall, it looks like the top of a Beyblade made a bit more triangular. It'll need to be mounted on a rocket for both stages of its trip, but its ability to smash into the ground and then take off again is theoretically quite sound. Which landing is going to be rougher, you might ask, Earth or Mars? Well, given that Mars is much smaller than Earth and has less mass, it's probably the softer target. There's also no parking lots or movie theaters on Mars it could stray into. Its gravity is only 38% of Earth's own gravitational pull on the surface, so it'll probably be a fair bit easier to escape from. Now that we know that, where is it coming from? The Perseverance drone, Percy to her friends, is basically an unmanned car loaded with cameras and science tools. It even came with a little helicopter buddy strapped to her stomach to keep her company. Ingenuity, the first attempt at controlled light on another planet. Together, they're traveling the Jezero crater and have made it almost 8 miles. I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but Mars miles hit differently, trust me. Launched on the 30th of July 2020, it has been on Mars since February 18th, 2021. Despite that, it's only just now gathering the 11th sample it'll be sending back to Earth. The mission is intended to gather 38 samples in total. Multiple missions are intended to launch across the decade to go and pick up and return with with the samples, but they're all coming from good old Percy's robo-hands. Give her a salute the next time you look up at the stars. Perseverance is doing the most for science right now and is going to be at this for years. How are we going to take care of all these samples she's been taking over the years and is still on her way to grabbing all of? Well, keep watching to find out about the containment phase. You're not going to believe what the scientists have determined about potential life on Mars. But next, where will it land? The return landing will be in Utah, at the Utah Test and Training Range. The sample needs to land somewhere it can be brought back to a lab setting rapidly, so landing in the US is a plus. Normally, water landings are used to avoid a big crash into the dirt and needless damage or potential fires, but that couldn't guarantee containment. Not near any roads or towns and under restricted airspace, the return shuttle's landing here will have plenty of margin for error without worrying about landing in someone's backyard. The MSR capsules intended to return these samples use a method known as aerobraking, which does not involve parachutes. It's going to be a significantly faster landing than most as a result. Doesn't that mean it could smash open and ruin the samples? According to NASA's calculations, the samples and their containers should survive impact thanks to the MSR's design. No parachute means the capsule is going to be lightweight and simple, important factors for the galactic badminton game they're already going to need to play with it to get those samples home. They're expecting it to make a big hole and throw dirt and rocks all around the crater, but that's nothing to be afraid of in the remote location. The assumed 1.8-meter crater will throw debris out to 15 meters away, about a 50-foot cloud of dirt and crud. You better keep the lid on your Slurpee if you're intending to make a death-defying trip out to Utah on the day of. The real fear here is that some compound, potentially a leftover of life on Mars such as a new alien virus, could reach Earth and spread uncontrollably. All new biology would mean all new procedures. We've already lived through enough quarantine, and Corona was homegrown. You want to stock up on your baked beans and ammo if the NASA and ESA teams mess this landing up. Don't worry though, as we alluded to earlier, this is the part they're most worried about getting wrong, so they've got an asteroid-solid plan. Lastly, how does NASA plan to keep samples from Mars safe from contamination and contaminating Earth? If the sample cases are broken, Earth materials and even potentially microscopic organisms will contaminate the contents. We'll no longer be able to reliably know what was from Mars or picked up here on Earth, making this billions of wasted dollars and the worst end to any space cadet's career in history. NASA understands this. They dry heat all surfaces of their craft to 233 degrees Fahrenheit. Where extreme heat isn't an option, they utilize hydrogen peroxide. Hydrogen peroxide is able to take out a wide range of microorganisms from yeast to fungi to viruses and more. It's a shoot-all bacteria, ask questions the whole time operation over at NASA when the hydrogen peroxide comes out, so we know they take securing their own vessel seriously, but what about the samples they'll return with and need to study? If they contaminate the sample, it's a big loss for science. If they contaminate the planet, all of humanity's taking an L. Right now, it's the same plan in reverse. Apply very high heat. Besides that, very closely test to ensure there's nothing unexpected, like a microorganism, on the Martian samples. Overall, every panel of experts assembled believes the odds of present life on the surface of Mars are very, very low, but not zero. As such, the mission has been approved. Atop all that, there's the fact that if Mars had its own biosphere, it would be totally unique to that planet, and its disease unlikely to even be able to interact with human biology, like trying to use an Apple Lightning cable on a Samsung Android. What do you think? Are we about to see Martian COVID hit Utah at 90 miles an hour? Or is the idea that anything's left alive on Mars, if it ever had life, just too plain sci-fi to think about? Let us know in the comments.